INFJs, am I right? These quiet, deep thinkers, the so-called rare unicorns of the personality world. Yeah, you know the type. The empaths, the idealists, the ones who always seem to have the weight of the world on their shoulders. But hey, what happens when an INFJ starts operating at their peak? When they evolve from the emotional healers into something much more powerful? Well, they become a force you don't see coming. I mean, they don't beg for attention. They attract it effortlessly. And here's the kicker. They know exactly when to use that power and when to let it go. Stick around, because what I'm about to show you might just change how you see INFJs forever. And trust me, by number 7, you'll rethink everything you knew about them. Alright, so the first sign of a high-functioning INFJ, emotional control like you've never seen, huh? Let's get one thing straight here about these high-functioning INFJs. They ain't letting their emotions run the show. Sounds like a real superpower, right? But here's the kicker. These INFJs, they feel everything. And I mean everything. They feel your pain, your joy, your discomfort, your excitement. They feel the world's weight on their shoulders, and they carry it with grace. But the difference between a high-functioning INFJ and the rest of us schmucks? They choose when and how to react. They've mastered emotional control to the point where it's almost eerie. They don't just react to situations like most people do. Nah, they observe. They take a moment. They assess. They understand what's happening and then make a calculated decision on how to respond, if they even choose to respond at all. While most people get caught up in the heat of the moment, INFJs pause. They don't let their emotions hijack them, and that's what makes them so powerful. They don't act on impulse, they act with intention. So here's the kicker. Those high-functioning INFJs, they feel everything right here. But they've learned to, keep it all under wraps. Ever been in a shouting match with someone and they're just chill? Like you're losing it and they're just sitting there. That's an INFJ, baby, in action. They don't let the outside noise mess with their inner zen. You can throw all the drama you want at them, but it ain't gonna stick. They'll just sit back, process, and decide if you're even worth the effort. It's not that they don't care, it's because they know reacting right away is just a waste of time. They pick their battles. Now don't get me wrong, this control thing doesn't mean they're heartless. Actually, it's the opposite. They feel so much that they know reacting in the moment is just going to make things worse. Instead of jumping the gun, they're smart about their feelings. They deal with them later, alone. This way, they make decisions that are way smarter. While everyone else is busy with the drama, INFJs are already 10 steps ahead, thinking about what happens next. So here's a thing most folks never figure out. High-functioning INFJs. They're emotionally smart in ways that ain't just about getting other people. Nah, they've nailed themselves. They know their buttons. They know what will send them over the edge. And they've learned to dodge those messes before they even start. It's not about burying feelings, it's about grabbing the reins. INFJs pick when to deal with their feelings, not letting them run the show. That's why INFJs can be the steadiest folks when the you-know-what hits the fan. They ain't gonna flip out when everything goes sideways. They're the ones making the smart calls, handling the mess without losing it. They know how to be there for you when things get real because they've already cleaned up their own emotional disasters. But get this, INFJs don't need a gold star or someone telling them they're great to keep it together. Unlike the rest of us schmucks who need constant attaboys from the outside, high-functioning INFJs get their calm from inside. They don't need a pat on the head. They don't need a hug. They've built that wall themselves. That's why they can stay chill when everyone else is losing their minds. They don't need anyone else's freak out to decide how they should feel. Their strength, it's all them, baby. This kind of emotional kung fu, forget about it. It ain't a walk in the park. You're talking years, pal. Years of looking in the mirror, asking yourself the tough questions, and eating a little humble pie. These INFJs, they've probably seen more drama than a soap opera, carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And get this, they still manage to keep it together, even when the you-know-what hits the fan. Life throws a curveball. These guys just step up to the plate, cool as cucumbers. So next time you see an INFJ staying zen in the middle of a 5-alarm fire, remember, it ain't that they don't feel, they just know how to handle it. They don't let their feelings call the shots, they're in the driver's seat. And that, my friend, is what separates the pros from the amateurs. But let me tell you, this kind of emotional tightrope walk, it ain't a cakewalk, believe me. I'm talking years of staring into the abyss. knowing yourself better than your own mother, and yeah, choking down some seriously bitter pills. INFJs, these guys have probably carried more baggage than a bellhop at the plaza, stuff you wouldn't even believe. And still, somehow, they manage to keep it all from turning into a three-ring circus. Life throws a freaking parade of curveballs. They just stand there, cool as a cucumber, not a hair out of place. So next time you see one of these INFJs looking like they're auditioning for sainthood while the world's burning down around them, remember it's not that they don't feel. Nah, they just got a black belt in emotional judo. They ain't letting their feelings drive the bus. They're behind the wheel, map in hand. And that, my friend, is what you call a high-functioning INFJ. Secondly, the hidden helper. All right, let me hit you with this. High-functioning INFJs are the unsung heroes of the personality world. They're the first ones to jump in and help, but they won't ever make a big show of it. You won't catch them asking for credit or demanding applause for what they've done. Nah, their kindness, their support, their quiet acts of generosity are all done behind the scenes when no one's watching. They help because they care, not because they're hunting for validation. But here's the kicker about INFJs. Because they help in the shadows, most folks don't even notice. They quietly give, and when they do, it's like they're handing you a piece of their soul. They'll lend an ear, toss out some advice, or offer a hand when no one else will. But the second they're asked for recognition, poof, they're gone. They don't want the spotlight, they don't need the thank you, and they definitely don't want to shout about their good deeds from the rooftops. In fact, if you ever caught them trying to brag about how they helped, it'd feel weird, because it's not about them, it's about you. Here's the part most people just don't get. This isn't just about being humble. It's a deep, intrinsic part of who they are. High-functioning INFJs don't feel fulfilled by getting recognition for their help. In fact, they might squirm if you make too much of a fuss over their efforts. They do what they do because it aligns with their values and sense of purpose. Helping others is just second nature to them. It's how they make sense of the world. But the moment someone tries to place them on a pedestal, that's when they retreat, pulling their generosity back into the shadows where it feels most natural. And here's the kicker. Because of this, many people who don't know INFJs well might mistake their quiet nature for aloofness. They might think, oh, they just don't care about helping anyone else. But nothing could be further from the truth. INFJs care too much, and that's exactly why they don't make a big deal out of their kindness. They know that if they were to draw attention to themselves for doing something kind, it would defeat the entire purpose. It would be about their ego, not about the good they're trying to do. You got to think about it, right? How many times has someone done you a solid, only to bug you about it later? Like, hey, remember that time I totally saved your butt? That's the opposite of an INFJ. They're helping because it's how they roll, not because they're looking for a pat on the back. They don't need the spotlight, and they definitely don't need your applause. They give because it feels right, you know? And they do it so low-key, you might not even notice till later. You're like, whoa, I needed that, but who did it? That's their magic, quiet, unassuming, but totally impactful. Now here's the kicker, because they ain't looking for credit. Some folks take them for a ride. They could be helping non-stop, and you wouldn't even realize the emotional heavy lifting they're doing until they split to recharge. And even then, they're not going to let on that they're tired. They could be drained, beat, and emotionally tapped. But when you come back needing something, they'll jump right back in. They won't ask for anything, and they sure as heck won't complain. They just quietly disappear to fill up the tank and pop back up when you need them again. See, that's the kind of thing people just don't get. INFJs ain't looking for a pat on the back every time they lend a hand, you know? Their kicks come from inside, not from some kind of applause. It's like they gotta serve, gotta help, gotta make a stinking difference. But here's the kicker. That's what makes them so special and, let's be real, kinda soft. They're giving out free hugs left and right, and sometimes folks forget they need a hug too. They're running on fumes for everyone else, and then they're left feeling like a deflated balloon and totally out of the loop. But hey, here's the secret sauce. They ain't waiting for you to pump them back up. Nah, they've figured out how to patch themselves up, you know? They'll take a powder, recharge the batteries, and fill up the tank. But that's part of their sneaky superpower, knowing when to bail and not feeling like a schmuck about it. INFJs, they know their limits better than anyone, and they'll guard their peace like it's Fort Knox, So, look, if you're ever lucky enough to have an INFJ help you, get this. They don't have to. They chose to. And when they do, it's not because they expect anything in return. It's because they genuinely want to make your life easier, even if it means sacrificing their own energy. That's the quiet, powerful nature of the high-functioning INFJ. And trust me, it's something that's rare and worth appreciating. What a concept, huh? Thirdly, the social chameleon, the NFJ's silent influence, all right? Ever bump into someone who can waltz into a room and flip the whole vibe without saying a freaking word? Yeah, that's an NFJ for you. High-functioning NFJs don't gotta be loud to make a splash. They don't need to raise their voice, or demand attention, or make these grand gestures. They just enter. And in that moment, everyone feels it, you know? It's almost like their presence becomes the room's anchor. It's calm, it's intense, and it's unshakable. INFJs don't just walk into spaces, they kind of command them, but they do it quietly. It's not arrogance, I'm telling you, it's quiet confidence. They observe, they analyze, and they adjust. Here's the real kicker. High-functioning INFJs can read a room faster than anyone else. Believe me. They got this uncanny ability to pick up on the subtlest shifts in energy. They know who's uncomfortable, who's pretending, who's hiding something. It's like they have a radar for human emotions, for crying out loud. They're so in tune with people that they can understand your mood without you even saying a word. While others are caught up in these superficial conversations, INFJs are diving deeper, decoding body language, facial expressions, and unspoken cues. And when they choose to speak, it hits home every time. They know exactly what to say, exactly when to say it. But here's where it gets interesting. See? INFJs, they ain't just observing for the heck of it. Nah, they're not passive in their awareness, you know, they're strategic. They use their know-how of people and situations to kind of influence and guide without anyone even catching on. They could be sitting back quietly, letting others run their mouths while they gather intel and plot their next move. They can, manipulate the whole flow of a discussion without lifting a finger, just by choosing to engage at the right moment and in the right way. And the beauty of it, you never saw it coming. What makes this even more powerful, get this, is that INFJs know exactly when to play the chameleon. They're not always the loudest in the room, but they can switch gears whenever they gotta. Need them to take charge? They'll do it. Need them to listen? They're all ears, pal. INFJs are like human mirrors. They reflect back what others need from them, which makes them magnetic. You might be drawn to them without even knowing why. They're able to connect on a deep level because they don't try to be anything they're not. Instead, they subtly mold themselves to fit the dynamic, creating an atmosphere where everyone feels seen and heard. But let's be real here, this whole chameleon act, it ain't exactly a walk in the park for us INFJs. It's draining, you know? Constantly reading the room, always calibrating every move, every word, every vibe to make sure we're syncing up with the scene. It's not about being fake, get it? It's about seeing through people in a way most folks can't even fathom. And we use that insight to steer and sway things, making it look easy when, in reality, it's all carefully planned, you know? The cold, hard truth. Most people just don't get the power of keeping your mouth shut. They see an INFJ sitting there, quiet as a mouse, looking all distant and detached, and they figure we're just another face in the crowd. But newsflash, we're running the whole damn show from the shadows. We know exactly how to nudge conversations, bring folks together, even defuse a bomb, all without ever stepping into the spotlight. So next time you spot an INFJ just observing, remember, they ain't just hanging out. They're the puppet masters of quiet influence, always playing 3 moves ahead. All right, settle down folks, we got more. 4th on the list, the strategic detachment, caring, but not attached. Let me tell you about detachment, because it's like the most screwed up thing people think about INFJs. They figure it's just being cold or not giving a damn, but for an INFJ, nah, it's a freaking chess move, a real calculation. They ain't gonna get all mushy over people or stuff that's gonna suck them dry. INFJs, they know getting attached is a sucker's game. Most folks, they're all about the feels, but INFJs, it's about what gets them somewhere. This person, this gig, does it line up with what they believe in, where they're going? No, they're out of there, no looking back. Now, here's the kicker. INFJs, deep down, they're all heart. They feel everything, and they feel it hard. So when it looks like they're playing it cool, they're really just looking out for number one. They're protecting themselves from losing it. When they bail, it ain't 'cause they don't care. It's 'cause they gotta respect their own damn sanity. INFJs get that if they don't make some room for themselves, they're gonna give it all away. And then? Burnout city, population, them. But hey, don't get it twisted. This whole detachment thing ain't about being heartless, capiche? Actually, it's the freaking opposite. These high-functioning INFJs, they care, really care about the peeps in their lives. The difference is, they've learned that giving a damn don't always mean holding on tight. Sometimes you gotta let go. If someone's toxic, a freaking vampire, they'll cut them loose, not 'cause they don't care, but 'cause they know that holding on to the wrong chump will only stop them from leveling up. INFJs, they'll take growth over clinging to bad news, no matter how much it stings. And what makes this so damn powerful is how on purpose it is. This INFJ, they've spent freaking years learning to spot the difference between a real connection and just being attached. They know the emotional tab for getting too wrapped up in stuff that ain't doing them any favors. And while others might feel like dirt for ditching someone or bailing, INFJs, they feel this sense of, like, relief and power. I mean, this don't mean they don't mourn the loss of a relationship or whatever. It just means they get the value of protecting their freaking energy and keeping their peace of mind. This whole strategic detachment thing, yeah, that's why INFJs sometimes come off as, distant, aloof, especially when they're like trying to figure their own crap out. People might see that as coldness or indifference, but the honest to God truth is, INFJs are just taking a step back to evaluate. They ain't gonna force a connection that ain't right. And they sure as hell ain't gonna hold on to some unhealthy relationship. They get that self-preservation is key, not just for their own mental health, but so they can actually be there for other people when it matters, But the real beauty of this whole detachment gig, it gives INFJs the freedom to love and care without getting totally consumed. They can love deeply, selflessly, but without losing themselves in the process. They give with intention, not because they feel like they gotta. They care without getting tangled up in unhealthy emotional BS. And that, my friend, is true emotional mastery. The high-functioning INFJ. They don't just know how to detach, they know how to do it in a way that keeps their peace, protects their heart, and lets them operate at their highest potential. Alright, fifthly, the silent warrior, fighting battles in their own mind. High-functioning INFJs. They ain't your run-of-the-mill react first, think later kind of folks. They're warriors, yeah, but not the loud, in-your-face type. They fight their battles in silence, inside their own minds, see? While everyone else is busy reacting impulsively to the mess around them, the INFJ is calculating their next move, mentally processing everything that's happening, and strategizing in ways that others can't even begin to comprehend. This ain't about being passive, pal. This is about being strategic. The INFJ is playing the long game, while everyone else is stuck in the heat of the moment. Here's the psychological truth, folks. INFJs thrive on understanding the deeper layers of situations. They don't rush into action based on initial emotions. Instead, they observe, analyze, and evaluate what's really going on beneath the surface. They're constantly working through problems in their minds, figuring out how to navigate the complexities of relationships, work, and life. They may seem quiet, even passive, but make no mistake, they're always thinking. While others might be caught up in the drama of the moment, the INFJ is already solving the puzzle in their head, working through it step by step, and making a plan to come out on top. So, this whole keeping it together thing, that's why INFJs always seem so chill, even when everything's totally bonkers. It ain't that we don't care, see? It's just we've already gone through the whole drama-rama in our heads. So, when the you-know-what hits the fan, we don't freak. We just switch to fix-it mode, pulling from our bottomless pit of intuition to figure out the best move. We get that a clear head means a clear path, so we train ourselves to keep the emotions in check just long enough to make smart choices. But let me tell you, it's draining, We're always analyzing everything, running simulations, and checking every angle before we do a thing. You might not see it, but we're mentally playing out a million what-ifs. And all this happens before we even move a muscle. This constant thinking, it's a survival thing. We've learned that reacting emotionally usually leads to a disaster. So instead, we become masters of silent mental warfare. You know, what really cranks up the volume on this mental fortitude thing is how INFJs kind of run the show in their own world without, having to bulldoze everyone. No yelling, no fights, no drama. They're too cool for that. Their head is the main event, and that's where they flip the script. They sit tight, wait for their cue, the perfect storm, and then bam. It's not just some knee-jerk reaction, it's all plotted out to drop the bomb at just the right second. They've already nailed it in their head. They've mapped out the whole shebang to come out smelling like roses, and without getting all emotional about it. Now, here's the kicker. INFJs. They keep their cards close to their chest. They ain't looking for a shoulder to cry on, and they sure as heck don't need a pat on the back for going through the ringer. They're wrestling with it, solo, building up their mojo in peace and quiet. That's the secret sauce to why they're such heavy hitters. They're lugging around the weight of the world without asking anyone to spot them. They stare down their demons in the dark, coming out tougher and twice as motivated. So next time you're side-eyeing an INFJ's grit under pressure, just remember, they've already KO'd the thing in their head before it even rears its ugly mug. And that's what makes them a ninja in disguise, slick, hush-hush, and always playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Alright, sixthly, the emotional reservoir, patience, tolerance, and the INFJ explosion. Ever run into one of these INFJs? They're all like endlessly patient, even when everyone else is losing their marbles, right? That's their emotional reservoir, see? High-functioning INFJs? They got this crazy tolerance for everyone and everything. They're like emotional sponges, soaking it all up without cracking. But here's the kicker. There's always a breaking point. And when these INFJs finally snap, whoa, ain't pretty. All that pent-up emotional jazz they've been hoarding, boom. It all comes out in this explosion of frustration and anger that leaves everyone floored. It's not like INFJs are ticking time bombs, alright? They just know when they've had enough. And when they finally reach that point, that explosion almost always justified. The secret? They've learned to bail before that point, retreating into their own little world to dodge the meltdown. It's a patience game, but when they finally hit that wall, it's like a hurricane. So brace yourself, folks. Alright, so seventhly, the strategic isolator. Solitude isn't loneliness, it's power. INFJs, they need their alone time, but not for the reasons you're thinking, you know? High-functioning INFJs, they don't isolate because they're lonely. Nah, they isolate because they're working on themselves. Solitude is their training ground, their war room where they process, strategize, and grow stronger. While others might see them retreating and assume they're lonely or antisocial, what they don't realize is that these INFJs are simply in their element, recalibrating their inner world. Every minute they spend alone is a minute spent building themselves into someone unstoppable. And when they finally emerge, they're stronger, wiser, and ready to take on the world. Don't mistake their need for alone time as weakness. It's their power in the making. So finally, the quiet rebellion, choosing self-preservation over people-pleasing, alright? If there's one thing these high-functioning INFJs are good at, it's rejecting societal expectations, am I right? They're not interested in people-pleasing, nah. And they're not afraid to just say no. When everyone else is, begging for their attention, they prioritize their own well-being over keeping up with others' demands. In a world that thrives on validation and external approval, the INFJ, they quietly rebel. They choose themselves, their peace, and their authenticity over bending to the whims of others. They're the ones who will walk away from toxic friendships, end unhealthy relationships, and never apologize for it. Some people might call it selfish, so what? But to them, it's self-respect. And in a world that values burnout over self-care, maybe the INFJ is onto something here. So what do you think, huh? Does this sound like yous, or do you recognize these signs in someone you know? If you're an INFJ, or if you've seen these traits in action, drop a comment below and let's talk about it. Don't forget to hit that like button if you're ready to take your INFJ game to the next level. Stay untamed, stay strategic, and above all, stay true to yourself. I'll catch you in the next one.